64 of you guys commented on your Smash Bros character brackets. If they were shrunken down to 12, I'm going to put them in a bracket single elimination style, and we're going to see which one is the best 12 character Smash Ultimate roster. But I'm not going to be the one doing it. I have a special guest with me. The one and only Jesse.
Hello, hello, hello. It's weird to be on this side of the camera for once.
Jesse is a master, legendary #3 in the United States at Smash Ultimate. So he knows all about the characters and about every single character.
Of course, 100%. You know, I once traveled around the world. I won regionals in Japan, if that's a thing. I was there, I promise you.
I'm gonna have Jesse rate the 64 comments each roster, and you're gonna decide one by one which one is going to move on, which one is just ultimately gonna be decided the best roster.
I haven't seen any of this list.
So you wanna know who's what. Roster number 1 versus roster number 64.
How do you want me to look at this today?
You know how Smash 3DS and Wii U came out at the same time?
Yeah.
Say these are two Smash games coming out at the same time, but they differentiated solely in roster, and you only had the funds to pick one game. Which one you go with first?
So gut reaction right now is the top roster. Reason for it is I definitely love having Samus included. Samus is such an underrated powerhouse of a character. I love playing as her. Great ranging, zoning, and she's got great mix-ups with grab combos. Bottom roster here has not Link, and that's a breaker for me. I'm not a fan of Breath of the Wild. Big shame on me, I get it. But it also has Villager too. So when you throw those two at me, I just can't overpower the greatness that is Samus.
Roster 2 versus roster 63.
Someone done did it right. They got Samus, Cloud, Pikachu, 3 people I would definitely play as. They've got your classics with your Kirbys, your Marios, Donkey Kong. They got a nice mix in there with some Fire Emblem as well. Bottom roster, pretty strong, pretty solid. I can't get behind Inkling being in a game over any other character really. Roster number 1, Cloud for the win.
Roster number 3 and roster 62.
When you take this at face value, it's hard to take in all of it at once. You know, like something leaps out to me here. I see Sora. That's a unique one. I haven't really seen Sora before. I see Snake. And that top roster is very technical. Between Snake, Link, Sora, you're dealing with a lot of weird play styles. Plus you throw in Sonic there for the stall game. It's a very complex roster. I think down is going to be a more entertaining roster. As much as I like, once again, I've said Samus before. If you look at this bottom roster, adding in Luigi, Joker, Steve, you're just really getting some fascinating gameplay. If you see Bowser versus, say, a Kirby, it's going to be a wash. Bowser wins every day. But a Steve versus Joker, I think you're going to get a really exciting match, or a Steve versus Sonic. It's going to create chaos. I would watch. Roster 2.
Roster 4 versus roster 61.
I'm starting to see a lot of repeats here, and I'm liking the originality of throwing Rob and Mr. Game & Watch in. Let's keep it going fast on this one. Saying automatically number 2 for the chaos that is King DDD versus Rob versus Game & Watch versus Wario and Pac-Man and Sonic, and just look at that chaos.
Going with the variety. We like to see it.
Yeah, I do.
Roster number 5 versus roster number 60.
I mean, this is probably the easiest win yet. We've got Cloud and Sephiroth and Bowser and Mewtwo and Joker all in one roster with some fun characters as well, minus Link. And on the bottom roster, it kind of feels like a standard Smash Bros roster. The top one's more exciting. Let's go to the top one.
Roster 6 versus roster 59.
Oof. You know, right off the bat, I like seeing Richter, and I know you like seeing Isabelle.
No.
I think you can draw attention at this point to your board, though. This is a great segue for what you see on that board. Can you read that for everyone? I think you should.
I'm being held against my will here. Apparently there's an Isabelle fund. Whenever I stream, donations are allowed for a new, to make something. Is this an Isabelle costume or a plush or a...
I think this is the outfit.
Yeah, like an outfit?
Full stream.
So if in one stream we hit a certain amount of dollars, I will dress up in Isabelle costume, and that will I guess that stream will be TBD. Stay tuned on my community post /Discord.
So with that being said, aside from Isabelle being in there, I gotta keep her alive for at least one of these. We're going top roster. Isabelle moves on.
Roster 7. Roster 58.
You know, I can't stand Mii's. And so anyone that's like, let's throw a Mii in there because it's Mii, I can't get behind it. This is 12 characters. I think the great thing, I don't think we've drawn attention to this yet, is we're talking about unlocks too, right?
The red fire is your default characters, just like in Smash 64, how the 4 characters on the left and right most side of the screen were your unlockable characters. I want to design the 12 character rosters in the exact same format. The characters that are in blue are your unlockable characters. You're taking a liking to the unlockables in roster 1?
Yeah, I am, because unlocking a Mii just feels unsatisfying. Automatically, roster 1.
Number 8 versus 50. 47.
That top one is a true Nintendo fan. They've got all the major franchises represented there. They try to be pretty equal about it. A lot of emphasis on Mario. Your second roster there is just a I like these people type of roster. Your K. Rool's in there, Rob, of course, Pac-Man, Terry. But overall, I think the top roster is a better roster. I think it represents what Smash Bros. Is meant to represent.
Roster 9 versus roster 56.
I did not expect to see Ridley in this. That's pretty fascinating. I can't use Ridley to save my life, but I love him. I always have loved him. Just because of seeing Ridley with Sora, but there's, oh no, there's a me. I'm out. Nope, nope.
Oh, is he not gonna decide?
I was so hyping that roster up, and then it broke me. Roster 2, I'm sorry. You can't have me's moving in this. Me's are out.
Roster 10 versus roster 55.
Let's talk about the unlocks again. Steve, Captain Falcon, Roy, Rob, good mixes there. But Mega Man and Samus create a great dynamic to that bottom roster if you unlock them. It's satisfying because you finally unlock some ranged characters. Bottom roster.
Roster number 11 versus roster number 54.
You gotta first draw your attention, and there are two Bowsers. And I haven't really talked about Bowser. Now, Bowser, when I'm playing offline, is my favorite character to use. He's the first character I really took into tournaments. You get a good core here. I'm spending a little bit of time on this one because these rosters are similar in their hearts. But there's one breaking feature. Can you guess it? Can you guess what's breaking my heart on this roster?
Sephiroth being default.
You got, wow, you know me too well. Sephiroth should never be default. If possible, should be an unlock. He's that good. We're going with the top roster today.
Roster number 12, and we also got roster number 53.
I know what you have to say about this one. You're like, please no, not another Isabelle. But I'm seeing Zero Suit Samus. That's the first time. That's pretty cool. Palutena. The top roster's got a lot of top tier talent in it. That bottom roster, I see Ryu again as an unlock character, Steve again as an unlock character, and then you've got your X Factors with Pac-Man and Sonic. The middle there is kind of traditional. I like that. I like that traditional feel. I'm going bottom roster.
Roster 13, and we got roster 52.
That top one there is like if it was Smash Bros. Light. I think you have all of the lightest characters on that roster, plus King K. Rool to hold it down. It doesn't feel balanced. It's very floaty. I wouldn't honestly enjoy playing that game.
But then Smash Bros. Heavy on the bottom.
Yeah, it's like you designed this for that reason. A weird dynamic there. I think I would rather play a grounded game than a floaty game. Bottom roster.
Roster number 14 versus roster number 51.
I think you know what stands out to me, and there's a me in there, and that's a disappointment. But you know what I really want to see? I keep seeing that me. I want to see Little Mac on one of these rosters. If no one puts Little Mac, I'm going to be extremely disappointed. Maybe we shouldn't put the video up. Going with the bottom roster, an unlockable Bowser with an unlockable Steve. Awesome roster. Although, unlockable Sephiroth almost redeemed that top roster. Almost.
Roster number 15 and roster number 50.
They feel close. They feel similar. Double Ganondorf's here. Getting that bottom tier representation. I love
Kirby too.
Ooh, double Kirby. I didn't even notice that. Double Kirby. I'm immune to the Kirby now. Double Pikachu.
Double Link.
Double Bowser. Double Mario. I'm gonna go top roster on this one just because I like Mega Man, and I know you would play this one and you would play it well, because I remember that match you played on that tournament where you were just dominating as Mega Man, and it was great to watch you just unleash it.
I don't know what universe you were watching that one from, but yeah. Roster 16. Roster 49.
There's a me. And there's a Min Min. Which one do I like less? Me or Min Min? Olimar's in there too. I'm not a fan of Olimar, although Olimar's become quite the hero on this channel. And so I think we need to bring some of that into this channel. I think some Olimar representation as an unlockable makes the dub.
Roster 17 versus roster 48.
Two very different play styles here. That top roster, especially that bottom row, is just Yankee. Think about trying to have half your roster plus Pac-Man there on the top be that style of play. It's just utter chaos. The bottom one is a very in-your-face type of roster. I like they got Sora, Cloud, Sephiroth, obviously, Bowser's in there, Kazuya, not Link, which is a detriment. But outside of that, I think that bottom roster is just going to be a lot more in-your-face fun. I think that's what Smash Bros. Is meant to be sometimes.
Does it feel wrong to have default Sephiroth and unlockable Cloud?
You know, it does, but I'll overlook the injustice.
Roster number 18 versus roster number 47.
Definitely new characters. And so, hidden gem here, I love Robin. I like playing as male Robin, which is usually the one that no one picks. But I really enjoy playing as Robin. He was like the third person I think I ever got into Elite Smash. Robin was just a blast to get into Elite Smash. He's very diverse. Seeing him on this is great because both rosters have me's. And so that becomes null and void now. Robin's gonna carry the day, even over Ridley, even over everyone else on that other roster for the diversity.
19 versus 46.
Weird rosters. The bottom one, there's so many people I can't play as. I can't play as Isabelle. I can't play as Pichu. I can't play as Pete. I can't play as Buff. I can't play as Bowser Jr. I would not like that game. But the top one has a me. And you know what? I'm going to make the exception. We're going to go to the top roster today just to give some of that me love. Whoever this lucky contestant is, you make the one opportunity to advance. Congratulations.
Roster number 20 versus roster number 45.
I see Simon. That catches my eye right off the bat. As an unlock, kind of cool. The rest of that roster really jank. Marth over Lucina. Why? Lucina's a better character. Top roster, pretty solid with some weird additions, and I think the weird additions make it better. As much as I want to see Simon advance, I think the top roster is a more solid roster to play as.
Concerned that you're sacrificing favorites for Isabelle here.
You know, I'm doing it for the game. If you were comparing games, which would you rather play? I'd rather destroy Isabelle.
Nice way to save yourself.
Hey, look. I'm still on the channel, guys.
Roster 21 and roster 44.
I'm sorry, whoever picked the bottom roster. It's very weird. It's got a me. It's got Isabelle.
Wii Fit trainer?
That's even worse somehow. I never understood the inclusion of Wii Fit. Top roster, please. Top roster.
Roster 22 versus roster 43.
That bottom roster, pretty interesting. It's very powerful. It definitely was like, hey, let's throw in DLC. And the top roster is like, hey, let's be traditional. Let's get the heroes with some of the enemies in there and make that nice traditional roster. And so you really got to think, which one do you prefer more? Do you like the DLC or do you like the tradition? My pick here and my pick so far, I feel like I've got to donate a lot of memberships to redeem myself in this community, but I'm going to get rid of the DLC and Sephiroth, believe it or not, because I think that traditional roster just is so sweet.
23 versus 42.
Well, I'm seeing two me brawlers because everyone likes me brawlers. I'm seeing a Wii Fit trainer. I'm seeing all the things I don't like. Olimar's on there. So talk to me. What are some things that you like?
This is very interesting. A lot of that bottom roster is stuff we've kind of seen before. However, they are mainly characters I think that would have a better chance at picking up than the top roster. I feel it's pretty close, shockingly. I think the top roster might just be a bit too weird for me to want to choose that over a bottom roster that does biasly include 5 Mario characters and Sonic.
I like how you counted that so quickly. It's like almost like you built these beforehand and we're like, yeah, I know these rosters. All right, bottom roster.
Bottom 24 is up next against roster 41.
These rosters have great core. So we're seeing Lucina finally in this game, just much better than Marth, right? So we're seeing a good rounded player. We're seeing Kazuya for the flash of the combo, which is great inclusion, great DLC. You've got Cloud in there as well. I think Zelda as an unlockable character is interesting. I enjoy that. Link could have been young Link. You can improve, right? The other top roster, hey, you got some weird jank there in the unlocks, which I enjoy. I enjoy the jank as long as the core roster is traditional. And it's got that. It really doesn't have a lot of sword fighter representation though. And I love my sword fighters. Swordies are gonna win this one. Bottom roster.
Roster number 25 versus roster number 40.
Wow. Steve as a normal character in there is going to throw a lot of people for a loop. We're starting to see a lot of repeats here. What about you? Do you think the same way right now? Are you seeing some themes?
I mean, as the man that put all these rosters together, yeah, there's been quite a lot of themes. Those top 4 are going to be very consistent throughout the board, so get used to those top 4.
Wonderful.
On the bottom, I should say. Overall, you're going to get a good dose of mainly Nintendo characters, so it's honestly just a debate on what you're looking for. If you're looking for main Nintendo style with a little bit of jank with Inkling and Villager, or a more crossing over with third parties, it depends on what you're more into.
If I wanted to play one or the other, the top roster wins because it's just got more of the characters can blend better together. I think the bottom one is just too disparate.
Roster 26 versus roster 39.
I see 2 not links. I like ice climbers. I think they're a lot of fun. They can't do that wobble as much anymore that they used to do. They used to be able to grab you and then they'd do a combo over and over and over, and it was death if you got wobbled like that. You know, I'm gonna go with the bottom roster though, because we haven't had many Nesses, and I just want to be able to just down B Ness with Bowser, pop him up a little bit, maybe destroy him so I don't hear Pika Fire every 3 seconds.
27 versus 38.
Oh no, this is automatic. Little Mac wins. He is a champion. Top roster.
Roster 28 versus roster 37.
I don't know what I think anymore. I'm starting to question what I think because I'm seeing double of the Inklings now, and that hurts. Double Sonic, double Kirby, double Mario, double Donkey Kong, double not Link. One's got Meta Knight, and Meta Knight I just feel like doesn't, despite his name, isn't part of the meta in this game. Let's give it to the roster with Yoshi, just because I think he's a little bit more fun to watch, and that unlockable Mega Man can make Gabe play the game.
Roster number 29, and we got roster number 36. What do you think?
I haven't even looked at the bottom one yet, but I see Cloud, I see Samus, I see Little Mac. Oh, and Pikachu. Look, I feel like someone picked my roster for him. It was like, hey, he would like this one. But on the bottom, you got your Terry going on. Gabe is a secret Terry player. But I'm sorry, top roster.
30 versus 35.
Just because it's so unique, that top roster is calling out to me despite seeing a me. It's so unique. Like the bottom roster, I feel like we've seen before. You know, not exactly, but very close. That top roster has to move on. The boldness of those choices.
31, 34. What's on your mind?
Ooh, I just hit the mic.
Sorry about that. We'll try that again. Next up, good sir. 31. Oh, okay.
Oh boy.
31 and 34. What do you think?
Woo! Ooh, Diddy Kong. I don't think we've seen Diddy Kong yet.
I don't think so.
Top roster is pretty solid, but Shulk I think is overrated. I'm not a fan of Shulk. I'm not a fan of Villager. I'm not a fan of any of those unlocks really. And those bottom unlocks I think are a lot more fun. We're going bottom roster.
32, 33. What you thinking?
Round 1 ends after 5 hours of recording. Whew. I feel like the core concepts of this game, everyone kind of identifies, you know, as we advance through this round, you've kind of seen what would they cut down, what are the core elements. And I'm just happy to say that I can kill one more Inkling today. So we're going with that bottom roster.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now up to round 2. Jesse, how do you feel right now?
Tired, exhausted, drained.
Perfect. Great amount of energy we need to keep going. Roster 1 versus roster 33.
Let's see the differences here, all right? I kind of put myself into a corner here when I was picking because these rosters are very similar. Same unlocks almost identically. You know, I'm going to go with the top roster because it's got that Samus and Bowser combination there. So top roster.
Roster 16 versus roster 48.
No, I'm going with the bottom roster. I mean, this isn't even a discussion. Min Min's got to go. I don't know how she made it this far. I might have been sleeping the last round. Sora, Cloud, Sephiroth, Bowser. I mean, this is the contending roster for me. I love that roster.
You're gonna allow a Mario and Dr. Mario in the same 12?
I gotta give you something.
You know what? Fair. I mean, I like it. I just didn't know if you did.
I'd love to destroy them.
Oh. Walking out, guys. Roster number 8 versus roster number 20.
I have to decide, do I want to see an unlock of Cloud or do I want to see an unlock of Bowser? I'm going to give this one to you. Which one do you think I'm better with?
I think you would have a better time with the bottom roster. You got Samus, you got Cloud, and you got at least a swords fighter in Marth, even though not Link is there. And you also have Donkey Kong to fill in that power void. It's not exactly Bowser, but he's there. And you're also pretty darn good with Pikachu. So I'm going bottom roster for you.
All right, bottom roster wins.
Roster 41 and roster 56.
Pikachu, Bowser, Donkey Kong, Captain Falcon, and Zelda, Kirby, Yoshi. The bottom roster has Mega Man and Samus. Top roster, Lucina and Cloud. Swordies or projectiles? I'm gonna have to go Swordies on this one. I think Swordies balance out the rosters better than the projectiles.
Roster 36 and roster 61.
So I feel like someone would have to spend money on the top roster. It's kind of like the Dallas Cowboys rosters, right? There's a lot of money in there. And then you look at the bottom one, and there's a lot of love. It's like a Giants roster, right? There's a lot of passion there. People chose that one because they were different. They picked Rob. They picked Luigi because they loved the taunt kill or they liked his mansion there. But I feel like that top roster, they just kind of threw money. They threw DLC in there. And as much as I love Sora and Cloud, I think we have enough of that. I'm keeping the roster of passion. I believe in them.
Roster 20 versus roster 52.
52 is such that heavy roster again. It's like that like, comment, subscribe. Should do it. With that being said, the top one, it's interesting. It's got a lot of weirdness in it. It's got Isabelle, big fan favorite of this channel. Isabelle has to die though. That bottom roster is just too fun. Bring it on.
Roster 5 versus roster 28.
All right, so I'm gonna try and speed blitz these as I go slowly now. Top one.
Okay. Roster 21 against roster 3.
Seeing double. What's the difference? Okay, Ryu. Ganon. You know, bottom roster. I'd like to see Zelda in there. You gotta have a female character in there to break up that roster. I haven't talked about that really before. And it's good to get some good representation in there. A well-rounded roster. Bottom one.
Roster 30 versus roster 62.
So I think I remember saying how bold that top roster was.
You liked how weird it was.
I did like how weird it was, but it soured like a bad wine in my mouth. I'm so sorry to whoever picked that. You probably are a wonderful Smash Bros player that could probably take me 3-0. But that bottom roster I just feel like is a better playable roster. So as much as I enjoy your top roster, you're not advancing today.
19 versus 51. What do you see?
I see a me. Do I need to provide more analysis?
Bottom wins. Roster 6 versus roster 27.
You know, I was totally like when you revealed the top roster, I was like, that's the one. That's the one advance. And then you showed me Little Mac. I'm going to take it slow on this one. This one's going to get some time. We're We're gonna take a breath. I like having Lucina and Richter and Toon Link on a roster together because I just feel like there's a lot of good chemistry there, especially when you throw in the Mario cape. All that combined makes a fun roster. You got Robin there. You got Isabelle for the character for everyone to hate, but it's an unlockable. You don't have to unlock Isabelle. She can stay where she belongs. The bottom roster. Let's take a second on that one. Some cool hype moments with the Captain Falcon, right? But you really don't have anything else. I feel like that roster is just not going to deliver the long-lasting joy of the game. And so as much as I hate to say it, I think the top roster with Isabelle moves on. I'm sorry.
Roster 11 versus roster 22.
It's a very close matchup. Once again, I feel like we're going to say that a lot moving forward. What's the it factor for the unlockables? Would I rather start with a Pikachu or unlock a Pikachu? Pikachu should not be an unlockable, and I know that's probably not fair to the person who built this roster because the unlockables weren't there, but it's the roll of the dice you got. Pikachu should be a center cast member.
Roster 2 versus roster 34.
I remember this bottom roster particularly well. The top one has been lost to me. The bottom one I remember because I wanted to say something about it. There's this weird center dynamic about it of the Kongs together and the Bowsers together. And I think that's kind of fun. I really do think that's fun. It's just not a good roster. In comparison, if you were to play this as a fighting game, a platformer fighting game, I think it's too similar. I think you need to break it up a bit. I think that top roster gives you more.
15 versus 47.
What do we like? We like to see the core characters. We like to see that Robin getting some action down there. You know, with that Isabelle, of course, for you. Isabelle fun. But I see a me down there, and a me plus an Inkling plus an Isabelle. It's a lot of weight for Robin to hold. I can't do it anymore. Sorry, Robin, you're out.
This is number 7, and this is number 39.
I see a Mewtwo in the center there. That's calling out to me because I haven't talked about Mewtwo too much, but Mewtwo was one of the, like, outside of Richter, was like one of the first characters I really ventured to. Not very good with him. That tail hurt box, kind of weird, but I don't think it's gonna lift over the Mega Man unlock. Keeping Gabe alive here. Let's keep some GWallPro magic. Top roster.
42, and we got 55.
I particularly... I remember 55. I'm not going to use big words anymore. Looking at these rosters, I remember 55 because of the unlock potential of adding in so much jank with the ranged combat in this between Mega Man, Samus, Steve, and then Ryu spamming. I see a good unlock. So let's look at the top roster. The unlock just makes me want to peel paint with my eyeballs. Literally, like, it hurts. Please make it go away.
I think that was our closest matchup yet. But I think the bottom roster just etched out. We're in the Sweet 16 now.
Wow.
First up, roster number 1 versus roster number 48.
See, that roster 48 is just so good. I've talked about this roster. Now let's let you talk about this roster. Why am I drawn to this roster in your opinion? What sticks out to you?
I think you're a massive Final Fantasy fan, so having both Cloud and Sephiroth in there is key. Kazuya being the main fighter is kind of cool. Not Link being an unlockable, so you don't have to unlock him theoretically. You got your staple in Captain Falcon. Ganondorf being a default is kind of interesting. I think what this roster is almost an odd set of defaults, but a very good set of unlocks.
Ooh, and I like that you bring that attention. Now, here is my problem. Here's the Achilles heel of this roster, and it's not Ganondorf for me. It's that way we have Mario, Luigi, and Dr. Mario at that center core.
That's a quarter of the roster.
And that top roster, now I've been ignoring that top roster for a bit, so let's talk about this top roster. This top roster is the greatest set of main characters, I think, because you've got your all-around Mario, you've got your heavyweight Bowser,
right.
You've got your mix-up exchange fighter with Link, you have Kirby for the cuteness, you have Samus, who is really good at range, right? And that mix-up, I talked about that earlier. Marth is a swordy, right? Then you got Pikachu, that is a very fast character, and then Mewtwo is a very weird mixture of like a Samus with almost like a Lucario, I feel like. So you take that core roster and then you add in just the jank that is the unlockables there, and I think it wins.
So you're gonna go with top roster on this one.
I'm gonna actually upset my own first impression.
Wow. Roster 25 versus 41.
I feel like I've been talking about these rosters a lot. I haven't talked too much technicalities yet. Let's talk Marth, Lucina for a moment. The great thing about Marth is that tipper mechanic. It really adds excitement, and having Marth as an unlockable, I think, is great because an unlockable character means that you've advanced enough in that game. So if you're walking into this game, Marth as an entry-level character, no bueno. But as an unlockable, you can earn that ability of your spacing, and you can do really well. Lucina is a great entry character. I think she is the pinnacle sword character. I don't think there's a better sword character than Lucina at the essence of being a swordie. And so having her at that center roster is perfect. It's absolutely perfect. These two rosters achieve that aspect aspect, great. And I really haven't had a chance to talk about that. But where the top roster excels a little bit more is that bottom roster demands too much talent to play. Pikachu is not a pick up and play character as much as people want it to be. Olimar is definitely not. Steve is definitely not. Sonic, definitely not. That top roster, I think, is more friendly to your casual player. And I think we all forget sometimes that Smash Bros. Is a casual game.
52. 61.
Wasn't 52 like, comment, and subscribe? I think it was. I'm gonna keep saying that just because this is such a good channel. I appreciate you having me out here, by the way. So
No problem.
thanks. 3 rounds of this, and we're still going strong. And you guys are too, as watching this. I hope I didn't put you to sleep. I apologize. This isn't my gig. I'm gonna approach this in a completely nonsensical way that I haven't done anything yet.
Oh.
What I would rather listen to for the soundtrack of the game. Completely out of South Park, right? Because when you look at this, you're like, hey, these are great fighters. These are great to play with. But remember, the fighters bring the music.
You want to be able to listen to a good tune while playing getting destroyed by your friends, right?
You do. You definitely do. And so when you look at this, where's the weakness? The weakness is in that top roster. What soundtrack does Rob bring? What soundtrack does Mr. Game & Watch bring? A lot of beeps and bloops. And I don't know about you, but beeps and bloops hurt my ears. We're going with the bottom roster.
We're gonna go in reverse order. We're gonna show 53 first, and then we're gonna show number 5.
So that top roster is appealing in its own ways, and I think you know why. Why? It's obviously for Wolf. I mean, like, it wouldn't be Cloud or Sephiroth. And then that bottom roster, it's got a lot of your staples. I think I've talked a lot about the staples. So let's take this in a different way again. We're in 3rd round. I think we need to get some creative takes here. Stages. Stages are an important thing on platform. Stages are so important to me. It's why I always just lock it to Final Destination. I think the bottom gives you a little bit more of a diverse stage cast between Donkey Kong, Metroid, Pokemon, Legend of Zelda, Mario, Sonic, Pac-Man. I think there's a lot more creativity there for the roster. I feel like that top roster, it's got Mario, and then you've got a lot of DLC and outside content in there. I would rather see some really good Nintendo stages.
Roster. 1. Roster. 62.
You know, the first thing that calls out to me is Piranha Plant. It's the thing in the room that we didn't want to talk about. Piranha Plant was a joke character. I think we all can agree to that. First DLC character, right? I mean,
Technically.
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, so
Fighters Pass 0.
Fighters Pass 0, because 0 is where Piranha Plant should be. And then you got Meta Knight on top of Piranha Plant, and I don't want to get distracted here, but Piranha Plant just doesn't feel like a fighter. It's really cool. It's an interesting concept as a trophy. I don't want to unlock him.
Roster 6. Roster 11.
He promised me this would be a classic, and it's going to bring me back to my original point I made at the beginning of round 3. Lucina Marth, right? And I talked about that dynamic, and I said, hey, you don't want to unlock Lucina later on. You want her as a core staple character, but Marth as an unlock makes sense to me. And so when I look at these unlocks, I really see that the bottom roster has better unlocks outside of Kirby. The top roster is disappointing. Dark Pit, why not Pit for me? Like, why would that be the unlock? It doesn't make the sense for me. Richter, great. I love playing Richter. I love seeing him on this roster. He was my first person I played through for the storyline. I only played Richter. But I got to go with that bottom roster. I think it just makes more logistical sense.
Roster number 2 versus roster number 15.
Obviously, Cloud's there, Samus is there, and I have a lot of love for those being unlocks. But let's talk about just the roster as if I was GWallPro. I'm going to not be me. I'm going to be you. So I'm going to get louder. What's up, guys? My name's GWallPro here, and today we're going to be talking about the best roster here. And the best roster for me is the roster that's got Mega Man as a staple character, right? Because Mega Man is the way to go. So that's what I'm doing. Roster on the top.
That was actually not that bad. I'd give you like a 8.1 out of 10.
Ooh, 8.1 out of 10.
It's not bad.
Very specific, but I love it.
Last match of the round is 16. 7 versus 55.
Here's where I'm just going to go simple. Cloud is better than Sonic in that slot any day.
Final 8 rosters. Which one is going to get crowned the best? Only time will tell. Roster 1 versus roster 41.
What's drawing my attention away from the roster? How many rosters have we gone through? 64?
64 to start.
I'm going to get really serious now. I'm going to stop playing around, and I'm going to talk about the technicalities of the game and what I would want to play. 64 people chiming in with some pretty fun and interesting rosters. They weren't all dress right dressed. They weren't all blueprints. I got to love it. Great community stuff going on here. So if I've dissed on your roster, or if I boasted up your roster, take it for a grain of salt. But now I'm going to get some serious talk here. So when we're talking the dynamics of these rosters, the first thing we need to talk about is the space dynamic. When you're designing a fighting game, you always want to consider how are people going to play these characters in interaction with the stages. So looking at this top roster, we have some of the strong basics. I talked about that before, between your well-rounder, your heavy hitter, etc. Right? And then the bottom roster, though, this is where the bottom roster starts to fall apart, because you're going to want to get in someone's face with Captain Falcon. You're going to want to get in someone's face with Donkey Kong, you're gonna want to get in someone's face with Kazuya and with Lucina. And so the stage becomes irrelevant. You could fight on a small platform with most of those fighters, but the top one really adds to the stage. When you get Steve in there, when you get Pac-Man in there, it allows for diverse gameplay that is accessible at all different playstyles. And if you don't have that in a fighter, what you really have is your generic Street Fighter, your generic Mortal Kombat from the 16-bit days. And we just can't have that. I think we need to really focus on how do we build the best fighter, and I think that top roster is a great candidate to win it all.
52.
Like, comment, subscribe.
53.
Instead of just talking about the dynamics of spacing and how they interact with the stage, let's talk about how players progress. So players progress through learning the basics. And so you want a roster that can really develop your basics. Looking at the top roster, I start to have issues with that because you have too many fighters that have unorthodox styles that require projectiles. When it comes to King Dedede, Pac-Man, you've got really bizarre fighting styles there. And then to add on to that, you have Steve. I mean, Steve is one of the greatest characters in this game in terms of tier list, I would say.
I think he is number 1.
I think he is number 1. And he's number 1 because he's so hard to learn and he's got such a high ceiling, especially when he builds up to it, those blocks. The bottom roster has really core mechanics. Great grabs between Bowser and Donkey Kong. Great spacing and speed with Pikachu. Great mix-ups, being able to change how you're playing and reflect things with Zelda. And then if we were to take it a step further, Not Link. I don't like Not Link, but Not Link teaches you really how to change the way you perceive the character, because Not Link is slow, but he can get right in your face pretty quickly with good change-ups in the mid-levels, the mid-range, okay? But having Steve as the unlock is the better way to go. As you advance towards him, you advance towards Pac-Man. The bottom roster takes the cake.
Roster 51 versus roster 11.
So now let's talk about another aspect of the game. A game has to be appealing. When you're looking at the box art, you don't see the unlockables. And so we're looking at a roster for Smash Bros. Representing Nintendo, and you're trying to sell your game. Which one appeals to you, Gabe? I really want to know. Which one appeals to you? Take away the blue flames, staring at your normal fire. What do you got?
I mean, in my humble opinion, top one speaks out to me. You got a core 4 of Marios. You've got Link. He's a classic. Pikachu, Captain Falcon, that nice little fun character. The bottom roster, it's got some great characters, but it's got some characters I'm not as familiar with, and some, like Villager, that I just couldn't care less for.
And I'm with you on that one. I see the same thing you see. I know Animal Crossing is what, the second most selling game on the Switch right now? But the top roster is going to win this one. If Samus was on there instead of Rob, I think you would have a huge contender.
Last up for the round of 8, we got 55 versus roster number 2.
Now let's talk about one more thing we haven't talked about, one-player mode. So in one-player mode, you even got this cool story mode where you go around some galactic place and you traverse and you unlock characters who are frozen in space and time, and they're really cool. Or you've got the more recent ones where it's kind of wonky. But you always have the arcade mode, and the arcade mode is pretty much you just beat the person in front of you until you meet the final boss. So this roster theoretically should be that mode, right? Everyone in that progression should be in this roster, including the boss. Who is the boss of these rosters, right? Is it Donkey Kong? Probably not. It's got to be an unlock character. So we go to the 4 unlock characters. Samus and Samus, okay, washed there. Is Mega Man really a it factor for a boss? I don't think so. I think Mega Man's too nice, too appealing to be that final boss. So who could it be? It's not going to be Fox. It's not going to be Ike. Could it be Cloud? I guess. I think Ryu, out of all of them, makes the better boss as a hardened warrior that he is. He's got the look. I know Cloud is cool. I love Cloud, but he's already on the bottom roster. Let's go. Bottom roster for the boss, Ryu.
Semis. Who's going to move on to the grand finals? Roster 1 versus roster 53. Yes, exact same unlocks. So what's happening here?
Yeah, it's like I was starting to shape towards the same thing. So you ready for this? Let's count the duplicates.
Oh no.
All right.
Mario, not Link, Bowser, Kirby, Samus, Pikachu. Top one has Marth and Mewtwo. Bottom one has Zelda and Donkey Kong.
So what do those differences bring to the table here? Because the unlocks are the same. The core roster is the same. Marth, Swordy. Is there a Swordy on the bottom roster? No.
Not Link?
Like I said, no. When you look at like Mewtwo as well, what does Mewtwo bring to the roster? He really doesn't bring a lot. I think Zelda brings more to the roster, and I think Marth brings more to the roster than necessarily DK does. But DK is the grabber of the game. There's so much fun hijinks that DK does when he's throwing people off stage into the side stage. He's not high tier, he's not hard to beat, but he's fun to play as. If I get too serious here, I'm gonna lose the fun element. And if I focus too much on, oh, this one's a Swordy and this one balances the roster, if I just don't have the fun factor for the casual player, it's not gonna be a good roster, bottom one advances.
Jesse, before we move on to the next one, I just want to let you know that the top roster you just eliminated was mine, actually. How do you feel?
Oh, good. I feel actually better now. I was worrying about that. It was some person that put a lot of their heart into this as a commenter. I hate to eliminate you guys because what you guys do for this community is amazing. But knowing I eliminated yours first, if you look at the core mechanics, though, you got him down, right? He's got everything that we were talking about. He just doesn't have the it factor, the DK dunks.
I didn't know if like you knew I was number one or not, or but
No,
like
no,
I just you didn't know anybody. Okay,
No,
that makes it even
I'm
better.
completely oblivious.
Who is gonna join 53 in the finals? We got number 11 and we got number 55.
So which team do I want to take on the team now that I just found out took GWallPro out of the game? Do I want to approach this serious now? Do I want to approach this with some levity? So I'll say Cloud is a big speaker, right? I don't think there's Cloud in the other finalist team, right? And so what characters do I like to play most? Let's talk about that. What roster do I want to see? I like to play Samus. I've talked about that. I like to play Cloud. I like to play Sephiroth. I like to play Pikachu. Weird grouping of characters, I guess. I love Bowser. But what don't I like to play? I don't like Ness. The characters that want to play keep away and then suddenly get in your face. That's your Steves, your Nesses, your Lucases. I don't really like that style of play. And I'm really bad with Sonic. I'm really bad with Pac-Man. I'm really bad with Mega Man. With all that being said, about all the really bad, I like to face things that I'm not good. I think it creates that diversity. I feel like I want to protect the Cloud. And as much as I hate to say goodbye, Bowser, hello, Cloud.
So the bottom roster, 55, is gonna advance to the finals. Real quick, my roster, does it get third place?
I'm going to be completely unbiased. I'm going to pass the buck. Vote in the comments. Does GWallPro's roster make third place? Let's hear it in the comments. Before we unveil the finals, what would I do for a roster? If I have the privilege to judge everyone as if I am some esteemed being in the Smash community, which I'm not, I think it's fair that I should present my own roster. And I want to hear what you guys think. Am I just bloated in my own approach here? You think I might know something here? I'm very interested in hearing.
Feel free to absolutely roast it in the comments or give it the love and praise it deserves. Let's move on to the finals.
I think it is final time. Can we get a drum roll?
53. Woo.
Right there. I really enjoyed the unlockables, especially I've talked about that throughout this entire thing. We have some oddballs that really bring out the game into its own new animal as soon as they're unlocked, and it breaks away from that core element that grooms you as a player. Great diverse roster. It's got a great selling factor to it. You look at that first 8 and you say, hey, that's a game I want to play if I like Nintendo. And then it just takes you further into, what? Sonic's in this game? What? Pac-Man? What? Steve? And what? Ryu? It's a great roster because it goes from that core element into something unknown. I love that. Now, the second roster is different in its approach. I know it looks similar at first, but it's very different because this roster has Cloud, but also does away completely with the expectation of grooming the player. Sonic is not a grooming character. Pac-Man is not a grooming character. Kirby is. DK is, right? But if you see those characters are already replicated in that first roster. So what does this other roster bring? Ceiling. This other roster has much higher of a ceiling of gameplay demanded of its players. This is a roster that you get on a handheld re-release of a game as an HD remaster or some type of recreation to say, these are the pro players. You got Steve in there, you got Cloud in there, you got Samus in there, you got Mega Man, all these weird characters. Go at it. And I just can't get behind that. I gotta go with that top roster. That's the winner right there. Number 1, core roster does everything right in its appeal and its demand. It's diverse. It's got male, female, it's got heavies, it's got lightweights, it's got range fighters, it's got short range, slow, fast, high jumpers, low jumpers, combo characters, high ceilings. It's got everything. It is the perfect roster.
So ladies and gentlemen, number 53, you just, in Jesse's opinion, showed off the perfect roster. And you know what? I'm happy. I'm happy I lost to the champion. I'll take that. This was a star-studded roster. I cannot lie. Let's give a big congratulations at Super Shark 82.
Hang on, Super Shark.
Oh no, I know where he's going. Okay, the camera's following you. Oh!
Super Shark. 82.
Literally. Oh, hang on. Super Shark, we actually have a Super Shark for you. Congratulations. You just presented an immaculate roster. Jesse, how was this experience for you?
You know, this experience was pretty eye-opening. I really do think that a roster means more to the game than anything else. More than the legacy, it's the heart. And seeing everyone come out with their own takes, I saw some people straight about their favorites. You could tell it right away, like, oh, I love these characters. This would be the coolest thing ever. I was expecting to see a roster of nothing but Isabels.
I took out multiple rosters with repeats and such like that.
I do feel like it was hard to say, hey, well, why is this roster better than the other? It's just because people had a lot of core foundational loves of this game, and then they just threw in their extra flair of what would be cool, what was the the it factor for that individual. And I respect that. Bring your flair, bring your interest, make the game unique. That's why Smash Bros. And the community around Smash Bros. Has always been one of my favorites. It's one of the few games that I've ever entered into tournaments for. This was really a fun experience. I really appreciate being on here, Mr. GWallPro.
I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of new take, your guys' community inputs being drawn into the videos. I think this was a fun idea. If you guys want to see more comment tournaments like this, comment down below, like the video, share it with people who you guys think might enjoy, share it with people who you guys think might want to be participants in future videos. If your comment wasn't featured in this video, don't worry. We might do more of this stuff in the future. You guys just got to show the video the love it deserves. Just let me know that you want Jesse to appear more in these videos if you guys enjoyed him in this one. With that being said, Jesse, appreciate you being on here.
Appreciate it, man. It was fun.
This was all in good fun, so don't take any of his comments towards your roster personally or my comments. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you're new. Stay all pro, and I'm out of here.